find it useful either way. Okay, and I'm going to assume I've got a nice number of people here and that you're in a mixture of levels. There's some primaries, some secondaries, some tertiaries, some different people. So I'm going to be giving a variety of examples and hope that this works for you. So here's where I am with this now. The agenda is going to be why write objectives, a specific format for objectives that you may be familiar with, and if you are, great, some good verbs to use, and then you'll break into small groups to write your own objectives. So if you've used the ABCD format before, you can be the expert in the room helping others. Then we'll come back into the large group to share one objective from your small group, and then if we have time, we'll do a little question and answer. So let's go. So you'll see this is the session objective. So by the end of the session, you will identify 4 elements of a well-written objective and write 1 or more observable and measurable objectives. And you'll notice when we start working on the ABCD objectives that this is an ABCD format objective. Okay. So when we're looking at objectives, they fit into a package. There are goals, which are broader, objectives are narrower, and assessment is very specific. So they all work together. Your objectives have to be based on your goals. The assessment has to be based on the objectives. So if you have good objectives, assessment becomes much easier and much more understandable to students. So let me briefly touch on the definition of terms because sometimes they're used in different ways. So for this presentation, goals will be general, broad, long range, the expected results of teaching in a broad way. So often they'll be course goals rather than individual lesson or activity goals. So they'll be bigger. The objectives will give you intended results, acceptable level of performance, and they'll be very focused. So it might be one lesson, one activity within a lesson that will have this objective. And as you'll hear several times during this, during my presentation, they are observable and measurable. And then of course, what you get with good objectives is you have a way of doing assessment where your tasks measure learning with evaluation of the, as it says, the output, products, or outcomes. But your assessment is tied to the objectives. If you don't have an objective for it, you don't have an assessment. And you know, they have to work hand in hand so that they work absolutely together. Objectives lead to assessment. Assessment is based on the objectives. So let's look now at objectives, okay? And I'm sure you all have had a thought about objectives, right? What I'm talking about are behavioral objectives for students. They are very specific. They must be measurable. They talk about what the students do. They also talk about how the students will show you that they have mastered the objective. And in their demonstration of mastery, you have assessment. This way, if your objectives are done well, your course goals can be met because as you remember from the pyramid, they all fit together. So if we think about the difference between objectives and goals is that objectives are way more specific. You're getting into something that is not general, but very focused. So you don't say things like, students will understand the book A Tale of Two Cities. Well, no, that's broad and you can't see it. How do you tell? You open their heads and see if they understand? No. So it must be observable and measurable to be a good objective. So now what I'm going to talk about now is the ABCD format. There are different ways of doing objectives. I like this one because it's really clear and easy to remember, and even I can remember it. So I like the ABCD format. So the audience, the behavior, the condition, and the degree. Penn State University was where I first read about this. University of Connecticut uses it. A lot of places use ABCD objectives. So if you do a Google search for ABCD objectives, you'll find a bunch. There's a lot of them online. So we're going to look at how to do this. Now the audience, the A, is the easiest piece. Who are the learners? When you're writing an objective for yourself and your class, your learners are just your students, right? But if you're writing an objective for somebody else to read, then you'll say who your students are. Beginning students interested in learning eventually English for aviation, highly motivated, or advanced students, not very motivated, but so that you'll be much more specific if they're not your students, but your students will just be your students. So that's usually the easiest one. Now the behavior is the key piece here. What do you want your learners to do? So observable and measurable behavior with a strong action verb, something that you can see, not just imagine. So behavior is very, very important piece of this. The condition are usually this is how the circumstances or the context of learning. It's often the thing, the knowledge base, what you've done to lead the students to this point. So for example, after studying the vocabulary words in the textbook, or having read 3 chapters in the novel, that's what they did before, you then get the behavior. So at the end of a term, or while carrying an old computer and walking on a tightrope. No, that's a joke. That's not a real condition. The condition would be what you've done in class to lead the students to the point where they can do the behavior. And then the degree is how much? To what degree of mastery? Do you want them simply done? They will finish this workbook exercise. Fine, right? It's just done or not done. Or it's done at least 70% correctly, or using a rubric, achieving at least 45 points on a rubric. So you choose how well you want it done. And how well can be, I want it perfect, or it can be, it's okay if it's like 80%, so you are in charge of the objective. You're in charge of making this decision, but you need to decide what level of mastery you want your students to aim for in order to do a good ABCD objective. So let's look at an example. We have this example here. Students will write a 2-page book report after reading The Wizard of Oz that includes a summary and a description of 3 characters in the setting. You can see if these colors are coming out on your screen. I hope they are. Students are the audience. The behavior is write a 2-page book report. The condition, after reading The Wizard of Oz, and then the degree. We want a summary, you want a description of 3 characters, and you want the setting. So as you see here, let me highlight that. The students are your audience. If they're your students, students is sufficient. If you're just, as I said before, if you're writing an objective for other people to read, you'll want to say a little bit more. What's their English level? What's their age? What are the important characteristics of these students? But your objective for you, students. Okay. Then the behavior. They're going to write a 2-page book report. It's very, you can see it. They have the 2-page book report, or they don't have it. So you have a very clear behavior, an action word, right? You also have the condition after reading The Wizard of Oz. So they read The Wizard of Oz, now they're going to write the book report. So the condition is they read the book. You're not assessing if they read the book. You're assessing the book report. And the assessment is, these are the factors that you want to see. You could always just make it a 2-page book report. But in this case, I want to be picky. I want to say a summary, description of 3 characters, the setting, because we've been working on this book for a while. Now I'm expecting more. But as you can tell from this, it's really obvious to the students what you want. And you give students the objectives so that they know what you want, because it just works a lot better. If your students know what you want, they tend to do what you want. So you want to create a good objective. You want to give it to students so they know what you're looking for. So you're not going to write, students will understand the Wizard of Oz. How do you know? You don't know if they understand it. You have to have them do something for you to know. And this is about students, not about the teacher. I don't care what the teacher is doing in my student. Another example here, and then you're going to get to try one on your own. So we have given a sentence in the past or present tense, which is the condition, and they can be in any order. Often I end up with the condition first because it's sort of the background. So you start with the condition, then the students, your audience, will orally rephrase the sentence in the future tense. Okay, that's what they're going to do with no errors. They've been working on this a long time. I want no errors. So we've got a condition, an audience, a behavior, and a degree. And it can be, like I said, it can be in any order. And I often will start with the condition because that's what happened before we get to the behavior. Okay, so we're not going to do students will learn. How do we know that they learned? You know, I don't know. They have to do something so I can know that they learned. And I don't want to hear what the teacher's doing. This is a student behavioral objective. So now it's your turn. All right. So what I want you to do now is I would like you to identify this. Look at this. It should be pretty easy, right? Pretty easy to figure out what's going on here. So we have, after listening to a story, beginning learners, we'll identify the characters, getting at least one character's name right. So, right? Easy? Hopefully it's easy. So you've got the condition after listening to a story. You have the audience, beginning learners. What they're going to do, they'll identify the characters and how well, at least one character's name right. It doesn't have to be perfect, at least one. So because I've decided this is early in the lesson, I'm not asking for as much. So your objective depends on where you are in the lesson. You will add more to your objective as you get further along in the lesson and as you expect more. So your objective, you don't just write one objective for your class. That's not going to work. You have to keep writing objectives for the activities that you do. So it's, you know, the more activities, the more objectives that you have for what you want your students to learn, the more objectives you give them. Because if you tell students, you're going to do this and I want you to get at least one right, but it's great if you get 3 right, then they can compete with each other to get more than 1 right. But it's, again, you're the teacher, you're choosing what this is going to look like, but it needs to be clear and clear to the students as well as to you, the teacher. So a brief recap on do's and don'ts with objectives. You don't make them too general or too broad. You make them specific. You don't use words like comprehend, know, understand, learn. You can't see them. You use action words, create, synthesize, report, things that you can see them do. You know? Then you don't describe instruction. You don't describe what the teacher does. You describe what the students do. Remember, student learning objectives, not teacher teaching objectives. Those are different. And you include the ABCDs, your audience, your behavior, your condition, and your degree, right? Pretty simple. It always sounds really simple, I find, and then when you try to do it, it's a little less simple. So let me mention one other thing here before we get you into doing some objectives. That's Bloom's taxonomy, and I suspect a lot of you are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. You see on the left the original one, starting with knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And then more recently, we have a revised one because the world has changed somewhat and students can do more. So we expect more learning. And so we have more active taxonomy. Now, with taxonomy, it doesn't mean that you only do one. I mean, in any lesson, and certainly within your course, you're going to run through the range, or you hope to run through the range. If you're only at recognizing and recalling facts, you're not pushing your students far enough. But they can't get to evaluate and create if they don't know enough, if they don't know anything, and if they don't understand it. So it all builds on each other. So your objectives will depend on what it looks like, will depend on which level of this taxonomy your instruction is at, what you want students to know. Are they just at the learn the words level, or are they, I'm going to graphic novel level? So very, very different, and different objectives depending on which level you want them to be. So now what I would like us to do, can we open up the chat for participants now, perhaps? If possible, to share some good verbs. If we can do that, that would be lovely. If have a little chat option. Okay. If you can, type in the chat. If you can't type in the chat, it's okay. Just think about it. And we'll talk about the verbs in a minute. So people, Deanne, can people
Yes,
in the
sir.
chat?
Yes,
Going to
yes,
be
ma'am.
possible? Okay, sounds
Should I
good.
go for
All
the
right, so
breakout?
not yet, not yet. First, I want them to think about verbs. So what are some good verbs? What are some things that are active and measurable? It's not a test. It's okay. So example, in the chat, if you can see the chat, you'll type things like spell, right? Spell is a very active verb. Draw. Draw is another active verb. So please take a moment, and if you can, type a couple of active verbs in the chat. We've got, over 100 people here, 155 people. Okay, so somebody's got to have a way of thinking of good active words. It's okay. There's no wrong answers. Oh, thank you. We're getting some, yes, thank you, thank you. Great. Oh, excellent. Pronounce, sketch, elaborate, tell. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, these are great words. Expound, wow, yeah. Explain, describe. All right, exactly. We're getting at, oh, hi, Pema. We're getting at some nice. Match is an excellent one. If they're doing a workbook, they're going to be matching, dedicate. Okay, so that you've got all sorts of goods that people are great action active verbs. Let me give you a few based on taxonomy. So the remember level, cite, define, list, match, understand, describe, discuss, report, tell, applying. They might assign, demonstrate, sketch, or use. To analyze, you're going to get analyze, categorize, diagram, solve. Then evaluate, you're going to get assess, choose, compare, measure. Rate is a very good evaluate one. And with create, arrange, or assemble, or design, or plan. So these are all great verbs to use in your objective because you can see them. These are behavioral verbs. Explain is a great one. I mean, these are all things that you do in behavior. Fill in the blank. Great. This is something active. So if it's active, it's going to work because you can see it. There are other right now. I'm going to talk about the knowledge domain and not the other domains. But you're right. If I had more than 55 minutes, we would get into other domains. So, but I'm just focused now on the knowledge domain, domain, to keep it within the time limit. Okay. But I know many of you are very familiar with other kinds of objectives. So please do feel free to use the things more than just the knowledge domain, like, climb, that could be one. I'll mention one little tool here. If you are and you can use this online tool called Easy Generator. It's cute. It doesn't do wonderful objectives, but it gives you an idea of how to do an objective. So learning-objectives.easygenerator.com. So this is something that you can try. In order to use it, you can fill out the form, and then you need to put in your email and they will send it to you. So they get your email, you get your objective generated, your trade-off. But I would actually think that you'll do far better using the ABCD method yourself than trusting the computer to understand what you mean and know your students well enough to do a good objective. But I thought you might enjoy trying this out because it's sort of fun. Now it is time you to do some of yourself. I am going to ask you to do an activity in small groups. So this is the activity for you. And you're going to have about 15, 20 minutes in a small group to do these things. Think about a lesson. You will write an ABCD objective. Share it with your group. Offer suggestions, make sure it's a good ABCD objective that you understand what other people are saying. And then you're going to choose one objective to share when we come back into the large group, okay? So is that clear? You're going to think about a lesson. You're going to write an ABCD objective for your lesson. Share it. Choose one of them to share with a large group, and you'll have about 15 minutes or so, 15 to 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so to work on this, okay? All right, so what I'd like us to do now is please open up the breakout rooms, and let me go back, and let's put everybody into breakout rooms, please. We can have maybe, let's get, if you do maybe 20 breakout rooms, that'll put a good number in each room if you can. Is that going to work? Dan, can you do that? I hope you can hear me. Okay.
Not at all. Deborah, actually, I'm
Yes.
looking here for the breakout room, but I'm not getting it. Well, I don't know. Today we used one. So,
Whoever's the
if I give you
host
the
is,
host, can you?
yeah, make me host,
No,
and then
I
I can
got
do the
it. But
breakout rooms. You can't do it as
okay,
a
let me send
co-host.
you then.
Okay, make me
Okay,
the
give
host,
me.
and then I'll do
Wait.
breakout rooms. Yeah, you should. You're the host, Dan. You should be able to see the breakout
No, actually, I'm trying for it. I'm searching for. Actually,
thing.
till yesterday we had different
Oh
version, but
yeah.
today we use the NELTA version. It is not working. I don't know why.
Yeah. Try to make me host, and then I'll see if I can
I've given you
if I
host.
can make it work.
Now you
Okay,
are all.
I'm host. Let's. Okay. All right. Stop screen. Try to get us into groups. Oh goodness, I'm not seeing. groups. Oh my goodness, this is not good. Oh, oh, you know, it may be that people have to, that you have to start with breakout rooms enabled in the settings. And if they aren't enabled in settings for the meeting, you can't do breakout rooms. So
Yes,
let's
yes.
not worry about that right now. Let me instead have people now, let's go back and have you please write some objectives. Oops, let me go back one. Let's have you think about this, write an ABCD objective, and then we'll share them in the chat. And we'll try to do it this way instead of having the breakout rooms. So think about it again. You're going to think about one of your lessons, an activity in a lesson. So try to be very specific. Remember, you're not doing an objective for your course. That's a goal. You want an objective for a lesson and maybe an activity in the lesson. And then we'll see if we can get some things shared in the chat. I hope that this will work. Yeah, too bad about the breakout rooms, but we'll figure it out next
I
time.
think now you can do it. I had enabled from sitting room. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we got it now. All right. I still don't see more. No. Okay, let me go back. Sorry, let me go back. I'm not seeing the breakout room in my, in my set of options, unfortunately. So while we're trying to figure this out, please do just write an ABCD objective in the chat, and we will work with it that way while we're trying to figure out what's going on here. It may be that you have to stop the meeting and restart it to get the breakout rooms to show up. So, next time we will make it work instead of this time. So for now, oh, good. We're getting, tell the types of topography of Nepal. Okay. You're drawing a map. Whoa, nice. So this is good. Okay, and drawing a map where you explain, maybe you're marking the different kinds of topography. Lovely. Okay, pronounce the rhymes after reading a poem. Okay, how well will they pronounce the rhymes? Are they going to do them perfectly or pretty well? You know, so let's see where we are. Explain social responsibility. Okay, in 3 paragraphs. All right. So if they're going to explain social responsibility, have they studied this? Have they read about it? How did they get to the place where they can explain it? But that's I love the behavior there. Explain, and with a great degree. So after listening to the song, fill in the gaps with at least 10 correct words. Perfect. Very nice. They read, okay, a letter to the editor and write a letter to the. How good does their letter to the editor have to be? Does it just have to be they wrote one? That's okay too. If all you want is to see, will they write it? That's good enough. But if you want them to do it in a certain way, to a certain level of quality, put that in your objective. Okay, after reading the wind and the leaves, pronounce the words meadow, fluttering, whirling. Again, you're going to choose whether you want them just to make any pronunciation or you want it a certain level of good. Okay. Okay, name the main character, 5 characters. Okay, I'm seeing some lovely behavioral objectives here. Write the answer to 2 questions that are asked about them. Okay, seeing some good stuff here. Excellent. How about some vocabulary? Very good. Their meaning and context, right? And certainly could have different meanings in different contexts. Very nice. Okay, find inferential words. Okay, find and mark. Excellent, that will work. How do they get there? How many words do you want them to find? All of the words in a passage? So we're getting in the right direction. We're doing a lot of good stuff, here. I'm seeing some excellent things. Able to get the meanings of words, how will you know? What will they do so that you know? They have to explain the meaning, they have to match the word and meaning. So think about how you will know what they will do. Be active in interaction. Okay, this is what you want them to do, to be active. You know, so I see somebody who's studied the ABCD objectives before with a lovely objective there, Pema, looking good. You know, then very clear, read the text, underline the verbs, change them into past form. Okay, that's a very clear behavior that you want them to do. You could also add how correctly you want them to do it, 100% correct, mostly correct. Name the museums included in a text. Okay. So looking good. So let's make sure we've got an audience and a behavior, a condition, and a degree. So if students are presenting their assignment, what did they do beforehand? How are they preparing for this? And how will you assess the assignment? How good do they have to be? What do they have to do? So be a little more precise in what you want people to do. Able to summarize the story well after reading the story. Yeah, that can be a really good sort of low intermediate level kind of activity. So again, you're going to think about the level of the students and come up with a behavior to match it. Retell a story or make a short story. Very nice creative level ones. Name the levels of topography of Nepal. Okay, and we're assuming that they have studied topography or looked at a map or do something like that. It would be great if you write also the level of your students that you're talking about in your objective. Are they beginners? Yeah, like children, great. What are the things, you know, what's the level of your student? Are we talking about beginners, intermediate, advanced, adults, children? Give us a little bit of a sense so that we know who it is that you're writing an objective for. And what they've done beforehand, what led to this point. So for example, yeah, spell the words from the first paragraph, which they were asked to underline. So the condition was after being asked, after underlining words, spell them. Okay, and then again, you need to choose how well you want them to do it. You want them to do it perfectly, or do you just want them to do it? Because again, you can be doing something at the level where you just want them to try, sort of your first stage. Then you might want them to do more than just try. And by the end of the lesson, you probably want them to do it really well. So depending on where you are in your lesson, you'll ask for different things. Yeah, analyze a sentence to determine if it's true or false according to the text. Okay, so, I mean, we're seeing some very nice ones. Oh, after reading an email, write an email to your teacher to plan an educational tour. That's very nice, very, very clear. Okay, and a grade 8 one, read the story, they write the correct answers to the questions. Yeah, here we're getting things. Oh, I love this. You guys are doing such a fabulous job with this. We're actually seeing some really, really good work here in making sure that we're getting active verbs in here. I love it. Oh, I'm seeing such wonderful things from you guys. So remember, it's got to be, don't just find something, but do something with it. How do you know they found it? Circle it, underline it, say it, mark it, so that nothing more. Preparing a CV is what you want them to do, but do they have a model? What's the condition? After seeing a model, after looking at some CVs, create a CV that includes certain elements, that includes all the elements in the model. So that's why if you get more pieces to it, assessment becomes really easy, because then you know, and the students know what you want them to actually do. Yeah, given a sample of a CV, prepare your own CV following the model. There you've got something that really is very clear what you want your learners to do. And they can do it because they know what you want. Creating postcards, describing travel experiences. Great, this is very creative stuff. So again, you've got different levels. Underline past continuous verbs in the story. That's a great recognition level. It's wonderful. That's where you start. Then you go from there, and eventually you get to where you're telling the story. But these are all very, very good. Fill in the blank with the correct words, a little more detail on how you get there, what's the background, what did they study before, but that's there. Imagine a context in their life. What are they going to do after they imagine it? Are they going to write about it? Are they going to tell a story about it? Are they going to draw? Imagine when you can't see. So what's the next step after imagine? They imagine, and then they do something. So the doing is what we're looking for. Prepare a leaflet about a religious spot in your locality following the model. Oh, perfect. Lovely, lovely ABCD format there. Well, students will, we assume we mean the students will. And that's very good. Tick the adverbs. Well, okay, what's the context for ticking the adverbs? After studying about adverbs, learners will tick the adverbs in a passage. Then we've got a real ABCD objective. So make sure it's not just one piece of it. We want to get all of the pieces of this. Okay, effects of COVID-19. So people around the world should follow the guidelines because the pandemic has taken the lives of millions, so you will stay at home. Okay, well, that's a good behavioral objective, that we will follow the guidelines to do this correctly. So look, oh, you guys know this. Maybe I should have given you a different talk, now that I know that you are so good at doing this. Well, I hope that what you're getting from this too is examples from everybody else of ways to do behavioral objectives, so that when you finish our session today, you will have a lot of ideas about how to write different behavioral objectives, so that you can come up with some really good ones in your own context. And I know that sometimes you're working with a textbook, you're sort of controlled in what you can do, but sometimes the textbook has the objective in it. And that's great, because then you can tell the students, this is the objective. This is what I want you to do, because this is where your learning is going. Remember that, a good objective helps the teacher and the learners, because when learners, something that I've found when using rubrics, when using objectives, your students, I mean, aside from a few students, almost all of your students want to do well. They want to do what you ask them to do. And a lot of the time, if they don't know what you want, they're not going to do what you want. Well, if they don't know what you want, they won't do what you want, because they don't know. So the better our objectives are, the clearer we are to students about what we want, the more likely we'll get it. And then they'll do better on the assessment, because they've understood what we've wanted, they've produced what we wanted, And then in the assessment, they can, in a final assessment, they're ready. They know what we want. They're ready to do what we want. So at this point, I think we're going to stop with all of these. Oh, what a lovely, you guys are doing such a lovely job. I hate to stop you, but I think I do need to stop so that, so that we can go on and you can listen to the next person too. So let me, so we've been looking at all of these, thinking about A, B, C, and D. And again, you can choose with your own students to just say what they will do rather than saying the students will. You could say you will, but you definitely want to have the behavior and the degree in there. And the condition is really helpful. So after reading the poem, they find 5 rhyming words and create more rhyming words based on the words from the poem. Very nice. They read a message of congratulations. They write a message about current educational accomplishment. Very clear. That's where we want to be. We want to be at crystal clear so that the students know and can do what we want them to do. So we have a few minutes now, I believe, for questions. If you have some questions in the chat, is that right, Deanne? Do I have at least another 5 minutes or so? I hope so. So if you guys have any questions, please do feel free to write them in. And I'll do my best to answer. And let me put in the chat a few useful sites. tsol.org is the TESOL. And if you want the TESOL Lounge, it's my.tsol.org to go TESOL Lounge, or you can do a search for My TESOL Lounge. The My TESOL Lounge is a free space for anybody. And you can, if you want to join, it's something that we do with TESOL. Okay, the difference between ABCD objectives and SMART objectives. It's format mostly. SMART objectives are great. I like ABCD because there are only 4 things to remember instead of 5. So, but SMART objectives are wonderful. I've used those. I like them a lot. So if you're familiar with SMART objectives, by all means, use a SMART objective. If you don't know, ABCD is easier to remember sometimes. A concise lesson plan for a novel is going to depend on who you're talking to and where you're going. A question about repeating about what ABCD means. Let me go back and go back to ABCD. Oh man, okay. Audience, behavior, condition, and degree. So you have those 4 things. Remember, the audience is who are we talking about? The students. I mean, normally they're your students. The behavior is observable. This is what they are doing. The condition is what you did to prepare them for this. Like after reading the novel, the students will describe the setting. The degree is how well. They will describe the setting in at least 3 sentences. That's the degree. That's how well you're getting it done. So let me go back to the condition, the context of the learning, how they're prepared for the learning, and to what degree of mastery. You can use these ABCD, audience, behavior, condition, and degree, in any subject for anything. It says to students what you want them to be able to do. So if you're going to teach literature, they don't just read literature, they need to be able to explain the motivations of the characters, the interactions of the characters, how it relates to the real world. So any of those becomes its own objective. So maybe in literature, when you're starting with literature, then you just want them to be able to maybe summarize what they read, maybe give you the setting, even more basic than that. What is the setting of the novel? But as you get at a higher level, you'll be asking them to do more advanced activities, things that are more creative. Having read Romeo and Juliet, create a graphic novel based in Nepal with the same theme. That would be very cool. I'd love to see that. So if you think about it, it's really just thinking about how you will know when your lesson is successful. How will you know that they got something from your lesson? So if you think about the audience, the behavior, the condition, meaning what you did to lead them to it, and the degree, then you have something that is really useful. Again, here's the example. Students will write a 2-page book report after reading The Wizard of Oz, and then the degree. It includes a summary, a description of 3 characters in the setting. So you're just being really, really detailed. And degree is absolutely related to their ability. So if you have very beginners, you're not going to ask as much. Maybe they just, they circle the words they know in a very simple sentence. But you're the teacher. You're thinking about, what do you want them to learn? What should they be able to do from this? And how well they can do it. So all of these are things that you really want to, we want to be able to get them to where where you want them to be to achieve their goals. So I think I have run out of time, in fact. So here you have a site that you can use to find a lot more information. Let me type it in the chat so you can assessment.html. Okay, so you should be able to copy it from the chat now. And also, if you have a specific question, you can email me. And I hope that this has been interesting. Thank you all for getting up early in the morning to take part in this. It's, as you might be able to tell from the darkness in my room, it's 9 o'clock at night here in Oregon. So, so I appreciate your being willing to get up early to be able to listen to me at a time that worked for me. So I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. It's been very fun, and maybe next time I'll see you in Nepal. What a kick! That would be so nice.
Deborah, can you give me hostship?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will absolutely shift you back to host. Okay, let me pull you out so I can make you host. Where did you go? Oh. It jumps around, Okay, there we go. Make host. There you are. Sorry about that. I should have done that before Deanne. Okay, so you should now be host.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen so you can move into your next things here. And I think we're ready for me to stop talking so you can have the next person talk.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Okay, wait, I'm just talking to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I see Pema. Hey, Pema. One of my former workshop participants. So cool. There may be other people here who've been in some of my workshops. If I don't see you, I'm sorry. It's hard to see everybody on this screen. It's a little screen. So,
actually, Pema was yesterday only asking me. When I went there you trained her. I heard this.
Yeah.
Talking
She
to
was
me
in one of
yesterday.
my workshops. So very cool to see some familiar
So
people.
So thank you so much, Deborah, for your time and for being with us. In this pandemic situation from the US, you have empowered the people of Nepal and all around the world. So it's our pleasure that we got you as a plenary today.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, some of the problems occurred here because we're using this um, Zoom site from the NELTA and a little
Yeah.
bit problem breakout rooms.
And
But
it was okay. It worked out. We had some great behavioral objectives. I was so pleased. Oh, and I see somebody else who was in one of my web skills courses. Yay! I'm sure that there are more people here because I can't see
yes.
everybody on
So
my big
friends,
screen.
do you have any queries? Please, if you have any queries, you can just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Friends. Yes. Okay. So no questions. Anyway, Deborah, on behalf of NELTA, whole family, nearly 5,000 plus members we have right now, and the people all around the world, the people from even Russia, Belarus are here. Now from India, people are joining here. Many more people are here. But, we enjoyed your session, and on behalf of NELTA Province 7 and the whole NELTA family, we'd like to thank you for being with us, and your presence has really extended the level of NELTA here,
Well, thank
Privince
you
7
so
as well.
much.
And hopefully in July 15th, I think I will be presenting on Tisol as well from here.
Ah,
uh,
excellent. Yeah.
we'll again meet there too. And this association NELTA family or NELTA Province 7 will award you with the certificate as well as of the plenary. Electronically, we'll be awarding it.
Yes.
Uh, so thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, it was so much fun. I mean, you guys are fabulous. I love y'all. Okay, bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay.
see you guys.
Okay. Now we have the session, another session from our Biswaraj Gautam sir. I think he is here. And possibly LB sir is here. Yes, LBG, I'm giving you the co-hostship so that you could unmute yourself from there. And Biswa sir, as we know, he has been empowering the people all around the Nepal for many years, and the way he has been, sharing the ideas about the resources and about teaching, learning, and these all things, we are highly obliged to him. And when I requested on behalf of Province 7, he delightedly accepted our invitation. We'd like to thank Biswaji. Biswaji, welcome to the session. Biswa sir, Biswa sir, you are co-host there. You can unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you, sir. I just unmuted.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So,
So,
Biswa sir, as I was talking earlier, your presence always, attract the people towards your listening, and we hope that the same efforts will be continued days to come as well. And to introduce Biswaji, I would like to request the NELTA chair of Bajang, LB Bohra sir. Over to you, Bohra sir.
Okay, thank you, Dan sir. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm LB Bora, chairperson of NELTA branch Bajang. I'm very happy being a participant of this NELTA International Virtual Conference organized by NELTA Provincial Committee, Sudur Paschim Province. Well, may I share my sincere gratitude from rural